In the streets of a winter city, a German shepherd performed an act that changed the lives of several people. She asked for nothing in return except the chance to save someone too weak to call for help. That day will forever remain in the memory of all who witnessed her heroism. The dawn enveloped the city with soft light, but Max, a stray dog with worn reddish fur, was already on his feet. He had lived on the streets for 8 years, and every morning started with a search for food. Max avoided people. They could be kind, but more often they brought trouble. However, thanks to their habit of throwing away leftover food, he learned to survive. That winter was especially cold, and the city had not yet come alive after the night silence. Max was inspecting containers when he suddenly became alert. A light breeze carried a strange scent. It was the scent of a human, but different, gentle, almost imperceptible. Curiosity outweighed caution, and behind one of the bins, Max saw a bundle, an old, faded blanket, as if something alive was inside. Max approached, sniffing. The scent was strange and almost elusive, but he understood that something fragile and defenseless lay before him. Instincts played in his mind, and Max was not indifferent. He knew the world around him was full of dangers, but inside the bundle was clearly something that needed help. The dog gently nudged the blanket with his nose. It opened slightly, and Max saw the tiny face of a baby. His skin was cold. Max froze, facing a choice. He could leave, as he always did, not getting involved in others' affairs, but something in the baby's eyes reminded him of himself, just as lost and unwanted. Max made a decision. Carefully, trying not to damage the bundle, he took it in his mouth. The baby stirred slightly but quickly settled, feeling warmth. The nearest place where there were always people was a hospital a few blocks away. Max had often seen people in white clothing go there and vehicles with sirens depart from it. He didn't know how they could help, but felt it was the only hope. Lifting his head and flattening his ears, he ran towards the hospital. Max could no longer be indifferent. What he carried in his mouth required life. Would Max find help before it's too late? The streets began to wake up, and rare passers-by glanced at Max, but no one stopped. To most, he was just another street dog on his errands. But Max knew that this time his path was special. The bundle in his mouth remained still, but weak sounds sometimes came from it. This only strengthened his resolve. Max didn't understand what exactly pushed him forward. Maybe it was something more than a simple instinct. He felt a strange responsibility for this tiny bundle of life. When only 2 blocks remained to the hospital, Max heard a loud siren. His paws slowed and his ears tensed. The red light flashed on the van that passed by. In an instant that lasted an eternity, Max remembered how a similar vehicle once took away a stray puppy in need of help. Then Max stayed out of it. But now, he couldn't do the same. The dog quickened his pace. The hospital, with its automatic doors and endless stream of people, always seemed like a foreign place to him. People were too busy with their own lives to pay attention to a stray dog. But today, Max was going to disrupt the usual course of the day. Reaching the main entrance, he paused for a moment, trying to figure out how to act. People entered and exited through the doors, some with folders or bags, others simply hurried along the corridors. Max moved forward. Carefully slipping inside through the sliding doors, moments later he found himself in a brightly lit room. The sense of antiseptics and human bustle filled his awareness. After taking a few steps, a woman at the counter noticed him. Her face immediately frowned. "A dog in the hospital," she exclaimed sharply, rising. "Get it out of here." Max didn't stop. He felt that time was running out and understood that he couldn't persuade this woman. Dodging her attempts to drive him away, he noticed another group of people, 3 women standing in a small kitchen area, talking and laughing. Max headed towards them, still holding the bundle in his mouth. Two of the women noticed him first. Their reaction was expected. Screams, attempts to drive him away, but Max didn't move. He looked at the third woman who stood aside, watching him intently. Her gaze was different from the others, curious, and more importantly, understanding. The woman took a step forward, quietly and calmly addressing Max. "What do you have there?" Max stood firm. Her voice was calm and soothing as she carefully approached him. "Easy, easy boy, what do you have?" She continued speaking without taking her eyes off the bundle in the dog's mouth. The other two women, who had just tried to drive Max away, now stopped, clearly surprised by their colleague's behavior. "Mary, be careful," one of them shouted. "It's a stray dog. It might be dangerous." But Mary ignored them. She already realized that this was not just a dog, but a messenger who came with something important. Approaching closer, she saw Max carefully place the bundle on the floor and step back, watching her reaction intently. Mary knelt. The old, dirty blanket looked completely ordinary, but what was inside caused her heart to stop. She carefully unfolded the cloth and saw a tiny baby. He was very weak, his skin had turned bluish, and his breathing was barely noticeable. "Oh my God!" Mary gasped and immediately turned to her colleagues. "Quickly, call a doctor and bring a warm blanket." Max sat nearby, watching what was happening. He felt that Mary knew how to help, and this gave him a sense of the rightness of his actions. A minute later, a doctor burst into the room. His gaze flicked from Mary to the baby. Without losing a second, he checked the baby's pulse and examined him. "He has hypothermia, but there's a pulse. We're taking him to the ICU," said the doctor, and carefully picked the baby up in his arms. Mary stood up, feeling her heart pounding from adrenaline. She turned to Max, who was still sitting motionless, his gaze fixed on the baby. "You saved his life, buddy," Mary said softly and reached out to the dog. Max, usually cautious with people, was surprised when he felt her soft hand on his head. Her touch was gentle, and he allowed himself to relax a bit. For the first time in many years, he felt not just gratitude, but a strange connection. This woman understood him and didn't shoo him off like others. "Whoever you are, you're a hero," Mary said with a smile. Silence settled in the room, broken only by the muffled hum of hospital corridors. Mary sat on a chair, her hands slightly trembling, still feeling the weight of what had happened. Max, sitting at her feet, carefully observed each of her reactions. His eyes expressed a mix of exhaustion and hope. "You did something incredible," Mary whispered, looking into his eyes. "If it weren't for you, this baby might not be alive." The colleagues exchanged looks. What had happened was beyond the ordinary. Some went out into the corridor, while others continued watching what was happening. Mary couldn't take her eyes off Max, who seemed to know that his mission wasn't over. After a few tense minutes, the door opened, and the doctor came out with a tired but hopeful expression. "The child is stable," he said. "He's got severe hypothermia, but we warmed him up in time and connected him to the apparatus. Chances of survival are high." Relief washed over Mary. She closed her eyes and exhaled, as if all the tension of the past minutes had left her body. She looked at Max again. "Thanks to you," she said aloud, but more to herself. The doctor noticed the dog and came closer, raising an eyebrow in surprise. "Did he find the baby?" he asked, without hiding his surprise. Mary nodded. "Yes, he brought him here." The doctor shook his head, as if not believing his ears. "Incredible. Usually dogs like this avoid people, but this one saved a life." Max seemed to understand that his effort could ease off now, but he didn't leave Mary. Her voice and touch reminded him that he had made the right choice. Mary couldn't hold back her smile. "You deserve better than life on the street, Max," she said, addressing the dog. "I don't know if I can change your fate, but you've changed someone else's life forever." At that moment, an idea arose in her mind. Perhaps she could be something more for him than just a person he stumbled upon by chance. After that, Max often came to the hospital, waiting for a meeting with Mary. The child slowly but steadily recovered. The doctors were doing everything possible to improve his health, and for Max, this time became the beginning of a new chapter in his life. Mary couldn't get out of her mind the moment when she saw Max at the hospital. His dedication and courage left an indelible impression on everyone. Max was cautious. Although he was starting to trust Mary, his habit of solitude still kept him at a distance. One evening, Mary decided to take a risk. She took a warm blanket and went to the hospital's backyard, where she often saw Max. The dog, hearing her steps, lifted his head but didn't move. In her hands was a bag of food, the aroma of which immediately interested Max. "I know you're not used to trusting people," she said softly, sitting down on the ground. "But maybe you could give me a chance." Max watched her. Her voice was gentle. Without any signs of threat, she opened the bag, placed a piece of meat on the ground, and slowly moved back. The dog cautiously approached, sniffed the air, and then took the food. His tail slowly wagged. "Good boy," Mary smiled, not taking her eyes off him. "You deserve better than life on the street." After this moment, their connection only strengthened. Mary returned to the hospital every evening, brought food, and tried to befriend Max. Within a few weeks, the dog already allowed her to pet him and even started following her to her home. And one day, returning from her shift, she made a decision. "Max, want to come home?" she asked, opening the door to her apartment. Pausing on the threshold, he seemed to contemplate her offer. It was his first real home, a warm corner, food, and most importantly, care he had never known. Max immediately took a liking to a spot by the window where he could watch the street but always stayed close to Mary. A few months later, Mary came home with a surprise. In her arms was the very baby Max had saved. "Do you remember him?" She smiled, placing the baby on the couch. Max froze, then cautiously approached, sniffing the baby's tiny fingers. His tail started wagging again, but this time quickly and joyously. Mary's life changed beyond recognition. Her home, previously quiet and lonely, became filled with laughter, the sounds of tiny footsteps and joyful barking. From the day Max brought the baby to the hospital, their connection became inseparable. The baby, whom Mary named David, recovered under her care. His cheeks grew rosy, and his eyes shone with curiosity about the surrounding world. Max became an integral part of his life. He was always by his side, lying by the crib, watching over the baby when Mary left the room, and even playing with him, gently pushing toys with his nose. "You're the perfect nanny, Max," Mary laughed, watching as the dog patiently lay while David tried to grab his ear. For Mary, it was bliss she hadn't felt in a long time. Her life before meeting Max was full of routine, where work was the only meaning. But now she had a family, albeit an unusual one. One evening, when David was sweetly sleeping in his crib, Mary sat on the couch, stroking Max. "You've changed everything," she said, looking into his eyes. "If it weren't for you, neither I nor David would be here now." Max seemed to understand her. He snuggled against her leg and sighed softly. Time passed, and their little family became a symbol of the wonderful connection between human and animal. Neighbors learned about Max's story, and doctors at the hospital even put his photograph in the hall with the inscription, "A hero who saved a life." But to Mary, Max was more than just a hero. He became her friend, protector, and part of her family. One day, as they walked in the park, David, already knowing how to walk, clung to Max's leash and laughed. Max walked slowly, carefully, as if worried the baby might fall. Mary watched them with a smile, thinking about how fate had wonderfully intertwined their lives. "We did it, Max," she said. "Now we have everything." Max lifted his head, his tail wagged. For him, those words meant only one thing: he had finally found his place in this world. Thus began an amazing story that proved even the most unexpected meetings can become the beginning of a new family. Max, Mary, and little David found each other through courage, compassion, and a belief in the best. Did you enjoy this story? Tell us your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to not miss new releases. See you soon.